Welcome back. It is Monday, 27th, and the only really racing that is going on right now before World Supercross is the Australian Supercross, and we may dip our toes into that, but here is the co-host, Coach Rob. What's up, man?
Hey, good morning, guys. I really appreciate you squeezing me in, Johnny. Like I said, obviously you can tell the background's a little bit different, so I appreciate everybody's patience, and hopefully you guys can hear me okay. It's a new system that's on the road in 100% transparency. I forgot half of the recording system. I had the camera and a microphone and forgot the darn headphones, so hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
Yeah, no, you sound good, Coach, and I think we are gonna just go out there and say that we think Deegan is no more a 250 rider, like just gone. No more 250 rider. And a lot of things lead to it, as we were talking backstage, because of that lucrative. I don't know what it is, but I've heard big numbers from Fox Racing, and everyone is kind of pissed because people are like, okay, cool. They make decent gear, but their helmets aren't really the best. And then no A-Star boots. But as a 250 rider on Star Yamaha, everyone is stuck wearing the same shit with Thor. And so you have to be 450 to get that kind of a deal. So it sounds like the Deegans are going after the bandwagon of making a bunch of money.
Well, you and I spoke a lot about this all year long, and I'm on public record. I think you were along there with me a little bit, maybe not on the same timeline, but the fact that it was going to happen. Yeah, you look at Roczen, he's the last big Fox guy that we have. I don't think we're saying anything disrespectful. You've got Deegan, who's the next heir apparent in regards to the generation of Fox always having that big marquee rider / athlete. So I think it's going to be announced November 1st. We'll see Deegan will be out head to toe in a Fox deal. If we think about the 250 deals, you can't have a gear deal unless you're on a 450. The fact that he's extended it from 1 to now 2 of the World Supercross races, I just don't see him going back to the 250s. I know I'm sounding redundant for anybody who has followed us for an extended period of time, but I just think he's leaving too much money on the table, and he's going to get paid a lot of money to show up, debut on a 450 in Europe, and then be able to show up at A1, Fox deal head to toe on a 450. It's going to be a crowded rig there when we get to A1.
Because what's crazy is World Supercross announces that, hey, he's not racing SX2, it's SX1. And so everyone's like, oh, okay, cool. He's just racing the 450 to see what it's like at World Supercross. And he's supposed to race motocross on the 450. But everything is aligning that, like you said, A1 is we're going to see him on the 450. And I'm kind of nervous for Jet if this happens, because I don't know how he's going to handle a guy like Deegan. And like last year, even during the SMX, Deegan looked big. Like, I'm not the biggest guy, Coach. I mean, you know that. I'm 5'9", 150 pounds. And like Sexton is quite a bit taller. I think he's like 6, maybe a little over 6 foot. But, you know, he's like a $180, $185. Right. And so to ride a 450, you got to be bigger. And I asked Deegan how big he was, because he's like 5'6", but he's 165, 170 pounds. So he's been bulking up. He's been getting ready. Like, he is quite a bit bigger than his dad, which tells you just everything leads to him trying to destroy the 450 class. And is he ready? That's the question. Is he ready? Because it was 2023 when he first came onto the scene for the full-blown Out of the Futures. And pretty much ever since then, he's won. So like my title says, I'm pretty convinced that he goes out and wins the first round of World Supercross, and it might just snowball from there.
I apologize. I haven't looked at the up-to-date roster. Cooper Webb is there, correct? He's scheduled. He's booked for opening round
to Paris,
I wasn't sure if it was round 1 or round 2, and I sincerely apologize to the World Supercross guys. Not to pull on any heartstrings. I'm actually here in Tennessee because my wife's father passed away. So I have
in our condolences, Coach.
I appreciate it, man. But I just don't want the World Supercross to think that I'm not tuned into theirs. I just haven't seen the registered list for rounds 1 and 2. Obviously, Deegan has added another level of excitement, but I think those guys are contracted for the first 2 or 3 races. But again, I may be wrong. I can't see the chat room here today just because of my configuration. So if somebody is responding, I apologize. I can't see it today.
He's for the Australian. So here, if I can pull this
he
up.
being Cooper Webb?
Cooper Webb. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So here, let me just, for the people that are live and going on this too, they could at least see it. And I should have my entire, where am I going with this? I need to stop doing one thing. I have my entire studio back up and running here this week too. So Craig, Miller, Roczen, Anderson. That's going to be interesting. Both the Suzuki guys. Look at the No Fear gear. No Fear. We're back. Pretty cool.
No Fear's back. Yeah.
I think Ryan Breeze was actually running the No Fear stuff too. So
hey, and props to you. I saw you riding. I saw the video on Instagram. You look good in the One Industry gear. What track was that? Whose bike was it?
It was my brother's bike, and it was just a local. It's a decent track. It's called Ram Off-Road Park. They do a lot of off-road racing, not so much like moto stuff. But
it looked like it had good moisture in it for being in Colorado. I was impressed.
Yeah, for right now. And so, I ride every so often, and it's nice that, I still know how to, which is,
you look good. Hey, scroll back down or up keep going that direction. Right there, that's some 2 heavy hitters. That'll be very interesting to see. Keep going down where you were, right there, because those guys are still under the same tent. When you look at something like Cooper and Tomac,
like
obviously
said,
Tomac's not there.
Look, Tomac, they're all on the same team, right? And all the 450 guys have got different gear. Alpine Star, Fly, O'Neill. And then the 250 guys are stuck with Thor. But now with him being with Fox, it just aligns. That's probably
now,
the
Tomac. Is Tomac not riding Yamaha over there, is he?
He shouldn't be. He should be running the orange KTM.
So what team would be the KTM in World Supercross? I apologize. I don't know who would be on that team.
That is a good question.
Because I would think the Yamaha team would be CDR Yamaha, correct?
Yeah, that's the one that they have up there.
And is Alessi
up there?
Is Alessi and those guys, are they taking a team back over?
Yeah, MCR.
MCR? Okay.
That's where Austin Ponatelli and Ryan Breeze are coming from. But okay.
And then you bring up something, the one that you just had there, Christian Craig. I mean, I don't think you can throw him as not a contender. Not like he's going to win every moto, but we know he's super scary fast.
Yeah, absolutely. But Coach, I want you to let me know, do you think Deegan can beat Tomac and beat Roczen?
Well, that's a good question. Because, Roczen, when he was over there the last couple of years, he's been the guy to beat. And then, of course, Tomac went over and he did well last year. Man, I haven't spoken to anybody that has said they've seen Deegan on the 450. We heard a lot last year, like, let's talk 250s for just a moment. We heard so much about how Cole Davies was the fastest 250 rider at Star at the Goat Farm. I haven't heard anything in regards to the 450s. And, one of the questions that I have is, if you start looking at these rosters team by team, where will Deegan settle in between Cooper Webb and J. Coop? I mean, those are 2 veterans, obviously. If you look at the end of the series overall, at the end of the 450 Supercross, Cooper Webb was number 1. J Coop was number 3. So that's a hell of a. If you're walking into an awning and you know it's always who's got the biggest dick underneath the awning, as we always tease about. That's going to be a very interesting dynamic because we know Deegan takes up a lot of airspace. They consume a lot of attention to the point that we've seen riders literally leave so they don't have to deal with them. But I haven't heard any talk about where does he slot in the way we heard on the 250. I know it's not answering your question definitively because I've not seen Deegan ride a 450 on a Supercross track. So I'd be totally talking out of my tail end.
Well, here's him on a 450 and like just his corner speeds. I remember being at like the first Futures race where he was just hauling ass around this just 180-degree bull corner. And you can see even here, I can't slow it down, but he doesn't drag the rear brake. He'll just keep his toes right on the foot pegs, but pointed inwards and just some roll speed here. He looks thick though too, like even his thighs. Like see no rear brake here. Dun dun dun. Just coach. My point is like, do you think there's going to be any growing pains for him? And I honestly don't. I think the growing pains that's why he's going to go do a couple of the World Supercross stuff, is kind of get his feet wet. And I hope that I don't know if the OzX Supercross can afford him. However, it would be cool to have him go there and race against Jet. And I know that they have high ties with the series.
Yeah.
And last year there was all the legality with Lucas Myrtle and them somewhat saying that Deegan wasn't going to get paid is really the gist of what kind of found out. And then, you know, you and I even talking with Trey last week, how he was just going, yeah, that wasn't really the case. It just didn't work out. However, my point being is it would be nice to have him go over there, but I don't think he's going to go race the OzX on the 450. I think it's just a couple of the World Supercross stuff and then line up A1.
Well, going back to your original question, do you think he's ready? Do you think he'll go and be a contender at the very beginning? If there's anything the Deegans have taught us is they don't do anything until they're ready. You mentioned at the onset of today's conversation, you know, the industry, not that I consider myself part of the industry, you are very entrenched in it. Just from an outsider looking in, right? You look at the
SMX. Seat bump. There's a seat bump on there too, which he didn't have on his 250. Just right. Sorry,
and that makes sense with that 450. No, it makes sense with that 450. But when you look at his performances as he came through the amateur ranks in SMX or Next or whatever they're calling it now, all of us were like, why would he didn't dominate at the, let's just call it SMX Next. I don't know if that's what they're calling it now or not. But all of a sudden, within the course of like barely breaking in the top 3 at the amateur level, he gets on one of the pro bikes, gets into the main event, and the rest is history, right? I mean, go ahead.
Oh, just you guys are talking about Tomac going to Cowie, and I think that was just silly clickbait rumors on stuff. It's pretty much, from what I've heard, the done deal with KTM, and it's been that way for a while.
Yeah, I don't think it's clickbait. I think it's the first time in history we've not seen team announcements in October. It's been pushed back to November, and this is the first year that we've seen that pushback has happened, because usually it's like, well, if you don't see something by the 15th of October, stuff's still brewing. And because of the Sexton and the Tomac thing not coming out till November, it just gives people fodder to start wondering, hey, why would they not release that?
Well, and Prado moving, and same thing with Anderson moving. I'm honestly, I'm a little disappointed with Cowie for letting go of Jason Anderson, to be honest.
But you got to look at the timeline of that. You're looking at it in hindsight. When they let Anderson go, they didn't really have much of a choice at that point.
What, just because you think that they couldn't afford Sexton?
Exactly. Because at that point, they were already negotiating to get Sexton and Anderson, not that he was getting the same money that, and that's why, and I don't have Jason Anderson on my phone. spitballing.
We need to
here
get him
with
on the pod is what we need to do.
He'd be awesome. But if you listen to the little bit of stuff that he put out there, he was like, he pretty much got pushed out. Even if you don't even have to read too deep in between the lines. He's like, look, they decided to go with somebody other than me that wasn't established, that was new to this area. And they're like, hey, they're paying him a ton of money. And I think even some of his little comments about he was beating Prado at some of the races, there was a lot of meat on that bone that he was trying to insinuate for sure.
And he was talking about like having a thyroid issue as to why he was gaining weight and all sorts of stuff.
Exhausted.
And, I know he's had some major family issues, which I try to stay the fuck out of trying to do that stuff, because it's not about racing, you know, that's personal stuff. You leave that shit on the side road. So I gave him a pass for motocross, and even Supercross. At the end of Supercross, like, hey, you go family first, you go figure what you need out. And then him then coming out saying that he had some other health issues, it was like, oh fuck, okay. But now I'm like, is he getting the Kyle Chisholm Twisted T bike, or is he getting the progressive Roczen bike? And I would say that a high profile guy like Jason Anderson, he wouldn't have signed that deal, A, unless he had nowhere else to go, or B, if he knew that it was still going to be that full-blown factory bike.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Kyle Chisholm's bike, and I think it's because he didn't have any place else to go. And I hate to say that because he's still got a lot of dog in him in the fight. And yeah, I don't think, because you know that Kenny wouldn't allow Ferrandis to come over. Kenny doesn't play well with others. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Kenny's got his own truck with the progressive umbrella. You know, it's very down the middle for sure.
He doesn't want to share resources.
No, Kenny does not play well with others. He didn't at Honda. He doesn't at Hep Suzuki. I mean, the whole Ferrandis thing is a perfect example. I mean, Ferrandis, you know, he's no slouch whatsoever. But whenever somebody's resisting that much, why? You could talk about the fact that Chase Sexton didn't want to play well with others at Honda, so he bounces to KTM, you know, and then with the changes going on, it's just there's not enough oxygen under the tent for those two egos in one environment. Yeah, and I'm saying that as an athlete, not people, just athlete. Off the track, those guys are cool dudes, but from a racer, it's very territorial.
100%, because you're really only as good as your last race. And you know, Kenny, rightfully so, having as big of an ego as he has, because he's been, I personally believe that he should have been kind of where the Lawrence brothers are, but he got real pushed back because of some circumstances. And you know, when we were talking with Trey last week, I felt the same with him too. You know, I thought that he missed at least one 450 Supercross championship because of just bad luck. And when Kenny got hurt, right, Kenny was unbeatable at that time. He could come through the pack and still win, and it was a pleasure to watch. And then when that happened, it should have been a career-ending deal.
That summer that Kenny was riding for RCH, for right?
Yeah.
No. When they was riding for RCH, and he would have been only the third guy to go undefeated in the season. True. That summer where the fork seal blew out, and he just, you know, he was on a completely different level. But
even when he was on, I think when he was on, because he got hurt on the Honda. So
yes, yeah. But like to your point, that dominant Honda Roczen, and then that dominant RCH Roczen, the record book should be completely different. To your point, exactly. And we never got to see it.
What's funny, Coach, is like Kenny, I think he's got a limiter, right? Like what we were talking, again, I'm bringing Trey up just because he's a high profile guy, and he was pretty candid about stuff. He said that he had some pretty gnarly PTSD after getting landed on in certain things. And I believe Kenny has that same deal. Like, he still does some gnarly shit, but he only goes so far. Right. And then I look at somebody like Tomac, and I truthfully think Tomac has gotten better over the years. And I think this is the best Tomac we've seen him over 30. It's just he's now riding with guys that are on their A game with Hunter and Jet and Sexton. That makes it look like beast mode is delayed, which I don't think it is. I think beast mode is, you go 5 years back, and if Tomac was riding like he does in 2025, he kicks everyone's ass and has like an undefeated season. But again, because of the level of competition right now, it's good enough for third if he doesn't get the whole shot.
The part to me that's so crazy is if you go back to the beginning of last year, we're like, this is the deepest 450 we've ever seen, right? And then it always filters down to 4 dudes. You can go back. It's like whenever we think we've got the deepest field we've ever seen, it always whittles itself. We don't end up with 12 different winners. It ends up coming down to 3 or 4 dudes. Think about if you're Tim Ferry. You just happen to grow up with the era of Ricky Carmichael, right? All joking aside, I think Tim Ferry has the most second places of anybody. So Tim Ferry's entire career, think about how much money he didn't make because of one dude. You look at Jet. How much money has Hunter not made because of one dude? If you just look at it like this last year.
Just last year, he took a couple million from him. So
exactly, all because you grow up in that generation where there's that one dude that is just McGrath, right? McGrath, Emick. Then you have the James Stewart, Chad Reed, Ricky Carmichael. You know, are we talking about the 5th place guy? Or are we talking about Nick Way? No, we're talking about James, Ricky, and Chad, right? And you're going to tell me that Nick Way wasn't badass? I mean, it's just
quick sidebar, Coach.
Yeah.
Do you see what Trash Guy 74 said?
I love what Chad Reed said. Is Jet as good as he is, or is he just racing the 30 class?
I think I answered that with Tomac, but
yeah.
Do you have because how Hunter is 26 or so, right? Jet is 21, 22. I think Sexton is up there 28. Justin Cooper is 29. Then Roczen is over 30, and Tomac is over 30. Barsh is over 30. Ferrandis is over 30.
Yeah.
Malcolm is over 30.
Well, here comes, if we take the conversation full circle, and to his point exactly, you've got Jet. Somebody help us out in the chat room, so I'm not typing, but I don't know how old Jet is. Let's just say he's 24, 25, right? So we know, and I still can't understand why
I think he's like
he's younger than that.
Yeah.
Here's the crazy part. Why haven't we heard about Jet's contract? I've known about it for a year.
03 when he was born. So he's 22 years old.
All right, 22 years old. If you just do the math, let's just use the number 30 that was put out there by the chat there. He's got 8 more years, right? And, 8 to 9 more years of legitimate racing. And let's say you're somebody like, we'll just talk about him because he's the topic right now. So you're Deegan, and you know that you've got to race this guy for 9 years. It reminds me of Emick.
Wait, Joe Shimoda's 23?
Yes.
Sorry, I just I didn't want to. Deegan is 19, Jet is 22, Joe is 23.
Check that number on Deegan. I don't think Deegan's 19. I thought he was a little bit older than that, but I may be wrong. But I don't. That seems extremely young.
2006.
Oh, it is. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Well, and then you think about anybody, just choose whoever your favorite rider is, right? And for the we've only been talking about Jet in the 450 class now for a couple of years. And all we talk about is domination. Then you've got somebody that Deegan is coming in right behind him. And let's take anybody that's your favorite rider that's 4th or 5th currently. Sexton is 26, same as Hunter. Okay, there you go.
Correction, I was like 28, so.
Yeah. So now you look at, you're coming into a class where there's just a guy that's just a juggernaut. And then right behind him is another one. So when you look at Jeremy McGrath was going out, who was in the 125 class at the time? Jeremy's dominating 250. Carmichael. Who's dominating 125? Sure shit. Here comes Carmichael, right? So if you're the guy that's 2nd or 3rd, David Pingree, Tim Ferry, and those guys, you're like, I've got to go through that dude in the 125 class. Then when I get to the 250 class, I'm using those terms at that time. Now you got to race not only Carmichael, but now you got to race against Jeremy McGrath and Jeff Emick and Jeff Stanton. You're just like, that's what Coach, I love about our sport.
But sorry, not segue, but I guess
Yeah.
digressing about
Yeah.
what we're talking about with Deegan on the 450. Like, truthfully, nobody gives a fuck how many 250 championships you won. It's
That's right.
basically, it's just like I would say it's the college diploma to be getting your intro level job, right? Is you got to win a 250 title so that you have dibs on a 450 team. But it's really all about the 450. So honestly, I have a funny intuition that it is going to prolong his career to get the hell out of the 250 class and jump right into the 450s, make as much money as possible. And I don't really think there's anything to lose, because if for instance, let's say he doesn't beat Jet, is that a bad look for Deegan? Or now Deegan from the 250 class, who is the top dog, aka sometimes the bully, now he turns into the underdog, which is kind of rewriting the whole synopsis for his family to get more fans, because it's like they want somebody to beat Jet. So
Deegan's in a win-win. If he goes and let's say he's immediately competitive. When I say competitive, to me, competitive is top 5 in that class. If he goes and is competitive in top 5, he lives, wow, check it out. He's a badass. If he goes and he's struggling in the 8th, 9th, and 10th, and then he works his way up over 2 to 3 years, it's a Cinderella
there's
story.
no way 8th, 9th, and 10th. Like,
no, I'm saying just from Deegan's standpoint of a win-win, if he does start there and he works his way up, it's like, oh my gosh, look at what he did. He's in a win. He can't lose. He's literally in a win-win situation. No matter what he does, nobody's going to be surprised nor disappointed. He's got life by the groin. And I'm saying that very positively for him. The
honestly, I'm going to be
created.
disappointed if I see 8th and 9th out of him, like even just once, without
Well,
like a mechanical, without him falling down. I think
not
he's into the 450 class and he's minimum top 5, minimum.
But let's play devil's advocate here. Let's say that all the top dogs that we've talked about, let's go Hunter, Jet, J. Cooper Webb, Eli Tomac, Sexton, those guys that have been in the class, let's just say they have a great night. They don't make any mistakes. They haul the mail. They ride beautifully. You're like, hey, dude, nobody made enough mistakes for Deegan. Let's say he gets a 15th place start, just hypothetical. He doesn't march through the field and go to 3rd. You're like, well, yeah, because he got held back by Tomac, Sexton, J. Coop. People are like, well, dude, those were some heavy hitters. See, that's where this is such an interesting position, because if he gets a 15th place start and he doesn't blow through 10 guys, well, you got to look at who he's blowing through. Anderson, Roczen, J. Coop, Cooper Webb. I'm just going through teams. Plessinger. Well, are you really surprised that he couldn't make those guys look foolish? Not really. So that's where, no matter what he does, he is sitting on a golden egg.
Oh, I forgot, like the Coonan brothers that are potentially staying over here. So
they've got a couple
Sasha
rounds.
Gonna race 250, and then
That's
is
my
Lucas
understanding.
gonna go 450?
450. That's my understanding. Yep. And we'll talk next week about the 250s, because there's a lot of what ifs going on in the 250 with all the people vacating, right? You got Jordan Smith going up for Triumph. You got Vial's leaving. You got Omer that's out for the season.
450 coach, though, that bike sucks.
Yeah, but that's what he's contracted to do. Well, he's contracted
but
to do
it's not going to be like, I was talking with like an old GNCC factory rider this weekend. We just randomly saw each other at the track. And he hadn't ridden for 5 years, but he was telling me like, yeah, Johnny, dude, everyone is fucking cheating. He's got just this from back when he was racing, that like everyone is cheating. Everyone is cheating. Those bikes are with frames to whatever. It's not something. And I was telling him like, dude, after everything that I have found out about racing over the past couple of years, there's no way in hell I feel like trying to be a privateer is any shape, way, or form like fair. Like I see what Kevin Moran's, Bobby Piazza, all these like good, solid riders trying to race against these guys. Jerry Robin, when he was doing it, like if I'm still convinced if he had factory suspension, it wouldn't have went down the way it did. But that's for a different story. My point being is like, there's just there's almost no point to be a privateer nowadays because those motorcycles are so good. Like when I was talking to factory HRC mechanics at MX of Nations and hearing that literally they just have to dump the clutch because as soon as they put in the ECU, you know, whatever gear map for start it is, they just be wide open, but yet the bike is going to be stuck at like a quarter throttle, or they could just be a quarter throttle and they program it to be wide open, whatever. But it's just, there's so much electronics on the bikes now that it takes away from the raw ass talent. But again, you put in, I'm long-winded answer here. You put in guys like Roczen, Sexton, Jet, whatever, Deegan, and you all put them on that type of equipment, there is going to be a top dog. My point being is just from 10th place on, there's no point in racing because everyone has a MotoGP bike and you have this production bike, which full circle, that Triumph 450 sucks. That motorcycle is awful.
Well, it's going to make the 250 class very interesting, tying in the 450 with Triumph, because, you know, we're supposed to hear there might be a couple additions to the Triumph 250 program with Jalik. And so that's going to be cool to see what happens there. If we come back to the 450 class as a whole, let's talk a little bit about Cowie. You've got, and we'll stick on 450s. Maybe we dive into 250s next week. But you look at Marchbanks. He's been on that Cowie platform. He's worked with directly or indirectly some of the guys. Do you think there should be a maximum hold? Absolutely. That no grades.
Oh, sorry. I was letting you finish, Coach, because I didn't want to be a
no. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, I love the fact that the
Caribou car. Racing 43.
Caboose Racing.
Caboose Racing. It says that should there be a maximum whole shot device measurement, they should just get the fuck rid of them, right?
Get rid of it. Get rid of the grates.
Yes.
Yep. It's got to go back to, and you've said it over and over and over again, and I've heard David Pingree talk about it, and I have mad respect for that man. There's too much parity going in the first turn, bar to bar. There's just not enough room for 20 bikes on the Supercross.
Well, and
track.
even the FIM, those guys, they cut out all the ruts in front of the gates every moto, and it's crazy. It's just dumb, No, I even honestly I don't think concrete starts were ever moto to begin with, but concrete was something where you had to be finesse. With dirt, you could relatively be way over the bike and just damn near burn out, spin that rear tire to get traction. But on concrete, it had to be way back on the bike, real to try to jump off of it because concrete is very slippery, right? Yeah. But nowadays, it doesn't matter where the fuck you are. The motorcycle is going to do the launch control on your own. And it's damn near like F1 where they are... I don't know if you remember that, Coach, but it was like 10 years or so ago, F1, a lot of guys got in trouble for having the near field communication with the lights where the cars themselves would automatically go once the signal was sent to the light for it to turn green. So the drivers didn't even have to do anything. It just, they all just went boom, you know? So that's what kind of the technology is getting. But here, anyway, finish what you're saying.
Nope. I was just going to challenge you, and I'd like to get some engagement with the chat room. You go to Cowie. You have Marchbanks that's been working directly or indirectly with the engineers at Cowie. He's going up to the 450 program. And then you have Sexton coming over with no experience with the Cowie guys. Who do you think finishes better at A1?
Sexton.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
As picky as he is, with 6 to 8 weeks to get that platform shaken down.
Coach, I'm maybe I'm going to die on the sword with this, but as of right now, and watching guys ride, Jed is somebody that as long as he's not being touched, he's in his comfort zone and he does some amazing shit, right? And he's just so talented that he can kick everyone's ass. However, the dude that I think that can go the fastest on a bike is Sexton. I just watching him ride, he is a dude that is capable of riding over that motorcycle and ride 110, 120%, just on the ragged edge to the point where he just small little brain fart. What color fucking underwear am I wearing today? And then just wads big. But on a day that Sexton just has shit going, I don't think he can lose.
I don't think anybody would disagree with you on that. It's just the statistical odds that he's going to produce the results. I don't think anybody is discounting his speed
between him and
whatsoever.
Marchbanks. Like, Marchbanks is a damn good rider, right? But his best finishes have come on that 250. And
Yeah,
the 450 is just another animal.
But I think the 450 is more Marchbanks' style. I think we're going to see a breakout season for Marchbanks. If I feel pretty comfortable that his equipment won't be a big discrepancy.
Haven't we seen him on the Club MX 450 before?
Yeah, that's a different playground though. Cowie to Club MX, no disrespect to the guys at Club, but the resources are unlimited at Cowie.
But according to Prado, coach, that bike sucks. So
yeah. But so does the Sun for Prado, because it's just we'll talk about Prado here in just a moment. But yeah, when you look at that, and I'm not coming out saying that Marchbanks will beat Sexton. What I'm curious about is we know that
I thought that was the question though.
It is the question. Yeah, but that's my point. At the first race, if I'm looking at somebody who's been pretty familiar with the bike, the team, the engineers, the kind of the methodology, and Johnny, when you switched from factory Honda to factory Kawasaki, it was tough going from those factory platforms. You've been there. You know what I'm talking about.
No, never.
You know those different engineers.
I had to ride a factory bike was a $40,000 Honda Houston bike, and that bike was that bike gave me the biggest boner, dude.
Yep,
I was so in love. That 250 was twice as fast as my 450. And I just was like, where can I come up with 40 grand to have this motorcycle? Because I was 5 seconds a lap faster on that bike on a sand track than the 450 I had. That's how much better that bike was.
Well, and this is what I think is going to be interesting with Marchbanks on a 450. He's a good starter. Unfortunately, he's a big boy. So I think he's not afraid of anybody. Now, am I saying that at the end of the season, Marchbanks will be ahead of Sexton? Yeah, I do. Just because I think
disagree.
Here's the reason why I'm being controversial. The reason why I'm being controversial is I wish that Sexton's contract was based on performance, not base salary. I wish, because Chase is the kind of guy, when he has to step up, he seems to do really well. And then it seems like when he doesn't have somebody's foot on his throat, that's when something stupid goes, whether it was on the Honda or whether it was on the KTM. It's like he works best when I think from my outside looking in, when he's got pressure on him, I think he does better. It's like when all of a sudden nobody's in front of him, he's 3 seconds ahead, he's clearly the fastest guy, something silly always happens. Obviously, I'm saying this tongue in cheek. He needs to just start
backwards because
literally, that's my point.
Yeah,
that's my point. Yeah. He needs something like that he doesn't have to think. He's like, oh gosh, I'm backwards on the starting gate. I got to figure this out. And he doesn't fear, and he just freaking. I agree. I say to Mikhail all the time, he's poetry in motion. I could watch Sexton ride a dirt bike 24 hours a day. Him and Jet. I mean, they just make it never look difficult. And for the average guy like myself, like, how do you do that?
I kind of disagree. They've got leverage because of how tall they are.
Mm-hmm.
But Sexton is more of a bulldog. That's what I've nicknamed him.
But his form. You're good friends with Donnie Hansen. He was one of your mentors. He reminds me of him. David Bailey, very smooth. He doesn't ever look like he's rushing. You think he's more bulldogish, like Tomac?
It's like a midway point between. I think he hits stuff a lot harder than Jet does. Jet is very like, coach, when I was at the Motocross of Nations, dude, like I saw the Coonan brothers on their KTM and like the Maximum Renault on the Yamahas and Koldenoff and all these guys were hitting shit hard. And then I just heard bikes in the background and I'm like, oh, this must be, Team Mexico coming by. There's just buh. And I look and I'm like, that's fucking Jet. And he just doesn't look like he's braking, but he's just like, and just kind of like blipping the throttle off of braking bumps and never really letting off, but never holding that bike. And then of course you hear Tomac come by and he's just slam on the brakes, grab that clutch, put that elbow down, and then just get as much boost. I feel like he's playing what used to be the what's the motocross game? I think people would know, the MX versus ATV, where you're just constantly just dumping the clutch because it's giving you a boost. That's
Yeah.
I'm sure the developers watch Tomac ride and they're like, oh, that must be how it's done. So let's just make the clutch the boost.
Yeah.
So,
hey, speaking of abusing the clutch, do you think does Deegan back off on the abuse of the clutch? Is he panic revving over every jump?
I think he's strong enough that he's going to be able to do that, because we've talked about this before. And if you're comparing Jet and Tomac to which riding style is Deegan, it leans more towards Deegan riding like Tomac. Like when I talk to guys, and like I was helping a couple kids out at the track yesterday, and I really believe like the new wave of going fast is the just bruh coast, feet on the pegs, just all about momentum. If you have to use the brakes, you're not really it's more of just a slow kind of grab, almost like a road race style. Because like if anybody's ever transitioned from dirt bike racing to road racing is very slow, right? Even though you're doing a $150 or more, everything happens so slow because the corners are so big and whatnot. But I think that's what Jet is doing, is Jet is slowing down everything versus things just coming at you fast, where it's like brake, gas. But I can't say that it's wrong, because then you've got a guy like Deegan that is able to make kind of still the old school way of just attacking everything go fast too. So,
but haven't we excuse me, haven't we heard that Deegan's bike is programmed that it bounces off the rev limiter and actually comes back down, even though he's holding it pinned? It's not actually fluttering up at the top. It's actually programmed to come back down. That's what I've heard is how his bike's programmed.
I really wish that the Star Yamaha, I've been kicked out of Star Yamaha more times than I can damn near count. And I'm not the smartest guy, so, I can't count very high, but I've the questions that they just won't tell you shit. And it's pretty much just because if you have a competitive advantage, you don't want to lose it, right? So they don't talk to anyone.
Well, here's the thing that I'm curious about. Derek Harris, who owns HP Development out of Texas, he builds all of our team motors. And we talk about this all the time, that most people, and when I say people, 65 to vet riders, don't know how to shift their dirt bike. They don't understand where the peak power is produced. And let's just take a two-stroke, right? There's that diminishing returns where you hit red line and then it starts to slow down because it's starting to sign off. On a four-stroke, you've got the rev limiter that says, hey, dude, you're bouncing off the rev limiter. But like Derek says all the time, learn to shift your damn motorcycle. Like most people don't know where that sweet spot is. So they think if it's just making a bunch of rattle and noise, screaming, sending a lot of dirt, but you're not actually accelerating. That's what Derek Harris says from HP Development all the time. Learn how to shift your damn bike. So when you come back to that, I'm wondering, do you think that the powers to be at Yamaha are like, hey, you don't need to panic rev over every jump on a 450? Or do they go, hey, that's just his riding style, we'll just program it to let him keep doing it? What do you think?
Well, I mean, how you ride a 450 is you don't bog the 450, but
Right.
you keep it in the low to mid. If you've got another gear and you're only 30-40% of it chugging, it's got room to go. And you shift right around halfway mark, because it's not like you said, the two-stroke where it's got to be on top. You can still be low RPMs and shift. And like a four-stroke is just so different, because every time you shift, it's like you just unlock another 10 to 15 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. And if you're on the bottom of the power, not to the point where it's going to stall the motorcycle, it's going to eat and it's going to progressively get better. And that's exactly what we're talking about with Jet. is he'll fucking roll around in third and fourth gear where that motorcycle is geared to be doing 65 miles an hour and he's doing 40 to 50, but he's got room to get it back up there. But he never has a motorcycle in the lower gears where relatively it's at the high end of the, I would say the mile per hour is where you see Tomac and these guys where they might be wide open in second gear and that motorcycle is doing 40, but it has no room to accelerate. I honestly, I don't know how those factory bikes have the ignition in what they have with their gears for it happening, but it's got to be something because Tomac, that motorcycle, dude, when he does dump the clutch, it is straight nos. Like I would love to ride that bike to see what it's like because it probably would just rip your arms off. And probably the best bike to ride is the HRC Hondas because they look the easiest to ride, to be honest.
So which direction do you think Deegan goes? Because you have Tomac that you're talking about is just, nitrous oxide, full throttle. You have Jet, low end of the RPMs, obviously leveraging the torque curve very low. That's one of the reasons why he's able to manual so much. Keeps the RPMs low. He's in the torque curve of the motor. Makes it easy just to manual anything. So do you think that Deegan kind of softens a little bit up, or do you think he goes bulldog style, as you call it, with Tomac? Does he emulate that style on the Yamaha, or does he go more finesse mode?
Style. That's always been his
but
style.
That's a 250. But that's on a 250. Do you think he changes on a 450?
He probably has a more retarded map to handle sense. Just because he's smaller. Because Tomac is 10, 15 pounds heavier than him, and I just don't think Deegan is as strong physically. So but him being lighter, he doesn't need as much of a torquey bike.
Well, you mentioned something earlier that I can't wait to see, and that's Deegan in a corner on a 450. You said it earlier, how he's able to he just turns so damn fast. And then you put the torque of that 450 underneath him. I'm very excited to see that.
Well, what I've noticed in Supercross is a lot of the fast guys is they will honestly shift up going into a corner, right?
Yep.
And, like they'll have, for instance, let's just say you have the long rhythm section and then a triple in, right? Well, in the air, they'll go from second, they'll shift to third, they'll land sitting down. They won't hit the brakes, but they'll just coast. And then about midpoint, then they'll start rolling on. And then that motorcycle should be in that meat of the power because third gear is geared for, 35, 40 miles an hour. Then they can just roll on. And if they hit the next jump, which most of the time they're seat bouncing, tripling into something, they can't be in too low of a gear because then the motorcycle is going to endo on them.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of guys not really braking until kind of the night show where the top ruts get so deep that you see guys starting to go way to the inside to kind of block past guys. That's when I start seeing them starting to break into those corners. And so, yeah, again, full circle.
Yeah.
Deegan rides more like Tomac, but he also rides a lot like Jet too, in a way of like roll speed when it comes to stuff. So, okay, statistics suck because Einstein says there's three different kinds of lies. There's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics. Okay, but if I had to put a percentage on what Pokemon card Deegan was, I would say he's 70% Tomac and 30% Jet, right? So we'll see if that's enough to beat. But the way Deegan is going to beat Jet is not on raw speed. It's going to be get a start ahead of him and get inside his head. I don't think he's going to be able to get inside Hunter's head. I think Hunter is more mature and just more built for adversity like that. And Deegan beats Jet by getting under his skin, which he already has, right? Like even at SMX, coach, guys were leaving the podium and some guys were talking shit about, this is like the second time it's happened to Jet, where they start talking shit about like Deegan's going to wipe your ass and all sorts of just stuff. And I feel like the best thing is for Jet just to have his actions speak louder than his words, but he openly gets out of character, turns around and starts getting an argument with fans. And I'm like, huh, okay. And I almost want to put this guy in timeout. What a waste of time watching and listening to this stuff, Hopper. It's like, why are you even in the podcast?
Take
man?
off. Yeah, take off. There's nobody holding you hostage at your
There's
stupid
1,000 other
computer.
people that are enjoying the conversation, and this is
unbelievable.
Good shit because you know, anyway.
Whatever. Go start your own show, dude.
I honestly, I hope he has a good week, right? We all
I hope he has a wonderful day. I'm going to politely disagree with you on Jet. I don't think Deegan's getting into Jet's head. I think Jet gets fed up with stupid people making stupid comments. And if you listen to what he said, he's like, oh, what place did he get? I don't think it's so much about Deegan. It's like, do you realize what an ass you're making of yourself with some of the comments that come out of your mouth? And we all know that Deegan's got some fans that no matter what Deegan does, they're going to support him. And that's cool. I mean, Chad Reed had those, James Stewart had them, Ricky had them. Everybody who dominates, McGrath had him, Emig had him. All those guys that dominate, you're always going to have the ones that, pardon my language, they're nut hangers, right? No matter what is said or done, that rider can do no wrong. I think Jet making a comment is more about making a mockery of the fans that are just, they say some of the stupidest things. It's kind of like the ones that were saying, you're not American, go back to Australia. And Jet comes over and he confronts it because it's like, do you realize how stupid you are? I am American. I pay taxes. Your statement is, and I think for Jet, I think this is where you're seeing Hunter rub off on him a little bit. Jet's not like calling him a bunch of F-bombs and name calling him and being catty. There's this level of sophistication when they do confront somebody that's saying something absurd. There's a sense of maturity to it. He's not just like, coming off, giving everybody the double number one, you're stupid. No, Jet goes and engages with them like, what place did he get? You think he's going to beat me? Like, well, listen to what you just said.
I just did the same thing to somebody in the chat, so.
No. It's your point exactly. No, you're not a hypocrite at all. Your point exactly is if you don't like it, but you said something to it, which allows him to realize, yeah, that's pretty stupid. I'm bitching about a show, but I'll take the time to stay in the show, but take the time to write a comment to bitch about the show that I'm watching. Okay, dude, you just made us realize what kind of person you are. You're not going to hurt our feelings.
With Jet, that it either happens way too often, which would be sad, or because I don't think he needs to.
But I don't know how you could say Jet is going to be susceptible to Deegan when Jet comes out, he jumps that false downhill triple, wads himself up, he rebounded back from that. He blew his knee out, he rebounded back from that. The agent situation, he rebounded back from that. I'm going the other way pretty hard. To me, Jet has shown that he's he's in that same class as Cooper Webb at an age that is ridiculously young. Because for him to bounce back of humiliating himself.
When was James and RC winning 450 shit? They were 23, 24, 25.
Let's call it that.
They all retired at 26. So it had to happen early in their career because, they all have like 40, 60 Supercross wins. So
right.
They were around the same age as Jet.
Now think about this though. Chad had to deal with Ricky and James. James had to deal with Ricky and Chad. Ricky had to deal with Chad and James. There was no room to come in and have a crack in your armor. But would you say that one was mentally weaker than the other? I mean, if you go back and you watch Chad Reed on the Suzuki in practice, he goes up and just elbows James Stewart on the track. They're talking shit to one another. Chad, there's that infamous when they're on the podium and their noses are 3 inches apart from one another. Chad's not shying away from James, and James certainly isn't shying away from Chad, right? That's next level mental toughness. Jeff Emig had to go and dethrone Jeremy McGrath. Remember when he showed up to outdoors in the black shift gear and McGrath was like absolutely unbeatable. Nobody could touch him. So the point being is, it's like, I don't know how, and I'm not calling you out, I just don't know how anybody can say that Jet is not mentally tough when he tried to jump a downhill triple that didn't exist, and everybody laughed like, what an idiot. All the little Monday morning armchair quarterbacks. Go ahead, boss.
Well, it just, the new Ducati with the Troy Lee designs looks pretty sick.
Hey, wait. Go back to that real quick. Remember we talked about the idea, what would be the drink? And everybody thought it would be Monster because that's what they saw in Europe. And I mentioned to you that Troy, on his interview with David Pingree, said that they had just inked an extension of a design deal with Red Bull. There you go.
And
how good does that look?
Looks beautiful. Looks beautiful.
So Troy, so teal. Exactly.
I'm not saying that Jet isn't mentally tough. I'm just saying that in order for Deegan to beat Jet, he has to get under his skin. He has to try to find a crack in there to
I don't think he'll be able to. And I'll go so far as to say I don't think Deegan gets underneath Jet's skin, and because of that, we see a better Deegan, and we see some racing like we haven't seen since Chad James and Ricky.
That's so much more I want to talk about on this podcast, because I even want to talk about a little bit of like the Red Bull Rampage shit. But
yeah, we'll do it next week.
Do you think there's any hazing that's going to happen with Deegan?
100%. You know, Barsha,
there's
Anderson,
a lot of pressure. Go for it, Coach.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to elaborating on what you're saying. I think there's some guys that have been around the block that you're going to have to earn your stripes. You know, Hunter's not going to make it easy, regardless of the sibling relationship. You know, Tomac's not going to make it easy. He has respect for him, but he's not going to make it easy. I could go by everybody, right? Roczen, Barsha, Cooper, J. Coop. None of those guys are going to make it easy. I don't think that they're going to do something that would look childish, but they're not going to be afraid to let them know.
Well, that's why I think that there is actually quite a bit of pressure on Deegan, because he's got to show up and he's got to make it apparent that he's not going to put up with that stuff.
Yeah. Well, you remember when AC raced his first 250 race, he said every single dude on the track hit him like he slept with their girlfriend last night. You know, that's just the reality.
I remember that.
Yeah, the very first race that AC went, he raced his first pro race outdoors. He said, dude, every single guy hit me on the track like I slept with their girlfriend last night. He goes, to the point being, at the pro level, it's a totally different playground than amateurs when, you know, you're the top one or two guys. But yeah. What's that a picture of?
This was pretty crazy. Alex, this looked like something out of a video game. I don't know what caused the crash, because I can't really see the beginning of the loop, the face, but was it his foot that he hit? Because it just instantly stopped him and he did a 180 over. And this was at the last this was round 3 of the OzX Supercross stuff. But I'm like, what the fuck happened? This looks like we're living in a simulation, because this is video game physics right here. Like, I think he put his foot down and it just flipped the motorcycle around. But this was like one of the wildest crashes.
To see him get up like that, because at first it looks like he gets his knee, like he hops on it, but then he walks. I was like, oh, at least he put weight on that right leg.
It looked like he was sliding, and then all of a sudden the front wheel catches and it locks the triple clamps. And so
see him grab his ribs. It makes you wonder if he like got his gut or something. Maybe he's right there. But the fact that he got up and walked away from it's pretty darn amazing. But you're right, it looks like exabyte, doesn't it? It's like, woohoo, go on.
And then, Coach, I wanted to. This was something that also happened this week that I thought was pretty interesting. These guys at the last MotoGP.
Oh, jeez.
Just try to go on the inside of somebody and you just stop you at a $120 and just ruin your Aprilia. And
I can't watch road racing wrecks, because those things, it looks like a bomb goes off in them. I mean, parts go everywhere. I mean, that looks so brutal.
Honestly,
now watch the bike.
Somebody in Moto 3 got really hurt as well, and
Oh, I hate to see that. Jeez.
I don't really know. In bad segue,
I saw your post on this, and I like I said, I have not been kind of plugged in. I hate to ask the question, but what was the outcome of it?
here, let me. So Adolf, okay,
Yeah.
just full warning, right? He goes for a double backflip,
Oh,
and
jeez.
this isn't the
Oh,
double
yeah.
backflip.
But that wasn't enjoyable either.
Yeah, but he crashed like 3 times
Yeah.
that day. And then this was probably the gnarliest crash I have seen. And I think he's paralyzed from the neck down, right? And 8 guys, including girls, were evac'd out of the Red Bull Rampage. I think there was 3 flight for lives. And that just seems.
Well, to me, what's crazy, as soon as he hits, he's literally limp and he just follows the contour of the mountain
Well,
down.
look at how far down he
Oh,
goes down the mountain.
yeah.
Right? Like that was an instant scorpion down. And I believe
Yep.
he was jumping. He kind of helped create that jump. Somebody might correct me if I'm wrong, so that he could just do this,
Mm.
but I believe the purse is like around 100K for the Red Bull Rampage. And you've got a young 20-year-old kid now that just total life changing, and this isn't the first time that it's happened, but man, I don't know. Something about sports right now. I don't know if it's just social media or if it's things are actually getting much more dangerous. But the level of progression, these Red Bull Rampage stuff, just I think they need to tone it down just a bit because it's.
But you got to keep in mind, though, on this Red Bull Rampage, the riders get to create the jumps themselves. Red Bull doesn't create it and say, okay, go hit it. Like no disrespect to Supercross, right? When we show up on Saturday morning, we have to ride what they built pretty much. These guys get to go out with shovels, as you articulated. You get to, if you want to build a certain jump to do a certain thing, you and your crew go out and you form the jumps. I don't have a problem with it because if let's say that Johnny, you built that and you're doing double backflips off of it, and I see it and I'm like, oh nope, I'm cool. I'll just do a huge drop in. Maybe I'll do a bar swing, a bar spin or something. These guys are choosing to do what they want to do. Now, if I go away from downhill mountain biking and I go over to something like motocross, if we Johnny, I don't know if you could pull it up or something. If you pulled Pontiac Superdome from '85, right, where Wardy and Stanton and those guys, there's no 125-foot triples. Nothing is set. I mean, they're just like it. The race is so slow, and the jumps are so small. Go ahead, Johnny.
This was kind of like the thing that I saw a bunch of the Red Bull riders kind of get involved in the conversation was somebody just saying, hey, the right thing for Red Bull, O'Neill, Monster, Yeti, every brand that profited off of this individual's, Adolf Silva's fearlessness to step up right now. They're worth billions and yada, yada, yada. Need to help with the road to recovery. And I think it's an interesting topic because I wanted to put it in our podcast because, I like your take on things, Coach, because you're older than I am. And I believe in capitalism. And so it's almost like you sign up for the event, what is potentially the risks, and it's not up to the promoter to pay your medical bills, right? But maybe there should be some sort of insurance involved that the riders pay a premium for that's kind of like outsourced that could help offset some things. But I don't necessarily think it needs to come directly from like Red Bull and Monster. And so, and I believe when I looked up the GoFundMe, Yeti did donate like 10 grand. And, but again, then you set a precedent that every rider that gets hurt, if Red Bull doesn't donate, then it's a bad look. So
Yeah, you bring up something that's really important. If you can leave that on the screen for just a second, the last line, the least they can do is give a fraction of their fortune back. If they give $1 million, somebody's going to say it should be 3 million. If they give $5, somebody's going to say it should be $10. Because then you get into the political question, how much is enough, right? You look at just personal taxes. Some people say the wealthy are not being taxed enough. Well, I don't know about you, but if I was in a 50% tax bracket, I don't think the government deserves 50% of anything that I make, whether I make 100,000 a year or I make 100 million a year. You look at how much taxes Bezos and Elon Musk and all these guys pay. They pay taxes. So when you get into this idea
Well,
that
I mean, there's a roundabout. They take out loans, so they make minimum.
Oh yeah,
taxes.
no, but they're using the tax laws the way they're designed. But what we're coming back to this injured rider and saying, well, this guy unfortunately gets hurt. Well, now it's almost like people are saying that the sponsors who have been giving them a financial living should now all of a sudden have to pay, like they should get penalized that he got hurt. And no, if you, myself, any of the listeners, we decide that we want to contribute to somebody's, GoFundMe or help me out, Johnny, not Rider Down Foundation. You just mentioned it. The fundraiser for those that are down and out.
Oh, Road to Recovery.
Thank you. Gosh, mental fart.
And like full disclosure, the Adolf Silva, he hasn't asked for any help. Right?
No, he hasn't.
This is just the conversation that's going on in the mountain bike community that I thought was interesting, and it's part of the reason we're growing up in the millennials where it's never enough kind of a thing. And looking up a little bit, Red Bull actually has a Road to Recovery type deal where they're giving back to a lot of guys.
But you've brought something up that's very important on 3 different levels. We as a moto community are losing riding areas because of that mindset that somebody got hurt, so therefore everybody should shell out a shitload of money. There's a goggle brand company that makes money selling goggles who sued and closed a track because his son got hurt. And it wasn't a negligence injury. The guy goes over the berm, gets hurt, and then he sues the track. That when you, Johnny, put your helmet on over the weekend, nobody made you get your gear on. Nobody made you drive to the track. Nobody made you get on the bike. Now,
well, it makes it seem like waivers are not good enough anymore. That's
exactly where I'm going. We all are complaining that we have no place to ride. Then when something does go wrong, you want to go after the person who owns the track, who had nothing to do with the fact that you whiskey throttled and broke your neck. Now, if a dozer is coming up the wrong side of an open track and somebody face plants in front of the tractor, that's blatant negligence. So you can't have it both ways where you say, hey, this guy fell and broke his finger. He should get $1 million from McDonald's because he slipped and fell. And then be mad that the tracks are closing when the lawyers are attacking both sides of the equation. When my son, he enjoys pro dirt jumping. He has a 45-foot gap. It's 30 feet rise over run, right? It's a six jump series. He clips he's on the first jump, clips his rear wheel, loses momentum. Instead of checking up, he tries to send the second one. Comes up close, cases it at the top, free falls 30 feet down, puts his hands out, breaks both of his wrists. We had to completely rebuild his left wrist.
So that's basically kind of like the Red Bull Rampage stuff.
But the problem is immediately I get a phone call from an attorney that says, would you like to sue the landowner? I said, F you. I said, it's people like you that are causing, nobody made my son do that. It's not the property's fault. In fact, I'm thankful that the property builds jumps so that my son can go and be something and get good at something. And we all know there's inherent risks. You piece of shit, you just want to close down and get money. Right.
There's a big
so if I go and I sue the property, there was over 200 people that were there that day my son got hurt. Now 200 people can't enjoy dirt jumping because my son was stupid enough to try to go for a second set after he clipped the first one. And I'm saying that very, very seriously, but we talked about it. He's like, that was the dumbest thing I ever did.
There's potentially a track that might be for sale. And, I was talking about it'd be kind of cool to own a motorcycle track, but then I'm going, oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. Because of, it's worse than owning a rental property. The risk involved of having any sort of a BMX jump park or motocross track, the risk,
skateboard park. Yep.
Yeah. It's just,
But think about how pathetic it is. I'm much older than you are. I grew up, we built skateboard half pipes in our backyard. And if you had a half pipe in your backyard, everybody was at your place every night. You made some jury rig lights so that you could skate at night. We go down, find a curb somewhere, you find a drainage ditch, you skateboarded. Now everything's got a 30-foot fence. It's got do not use, trespass, get arrested. It's like, my goodness sakes. Like, we drank out of water hoses. We stepped in dog shit playing kill the man with the ball in the field. Now all of a sudden that's violence and you can't do that anymore. Well, and then we wonder why we have a generation of pussies, right? That can't do anything and don't do anything. Well, if you do anything, the person that you did it with is going to get sued. And that's where I just get blown away, because it comes back to your point, full circle. I don't think it's the promoter's responsibility to pay for health insurance for riders. I do think there needs to be a rider union, because a promoter is never going to have the best interest of the rider in hand. A riders union can get out of control.
See, Coach,
so you got to have a three-way. You got to have a race track. You have to have promoters, and you have to have a riders union to make this work. And I'm not 100% for unions, because I think the unions in some areas, when someone's getting paid $100 an hour to tighten a bolt,
people put you in a box because, like, Republican capitalism and then union is very liberal, right?
Right.
So then you're like, oh man, you can't be that way. Well, it's like, well, no, fuck you. Like, you can be gray, right? And I believe you're onto something. There should be a level of gray where I think the sport, I don't want to say like stick and ball sports, because they've kind of figured this out. I would say more of the extreme sports with Red Bull Rampage, with motocross and supercross. There needs to be a level of gray where we're kind of incorporating, okay, capitalism, your own accountability. You signed up, you got hurt, tough shit. But then also, hey, we want to protect the sport. We want to protect the people that are involved in the sport. How can we afford when shit goes wrong? Because it's not about it. Like, we all know, you get on a dirt bike, it's not a matter of when you're going to crash. It's a matter of how bad you're going to crash.
Absolutely.
Right. So,
well, but how do you expect the sport to grow when, without Paris Raceway, without Hangtown, without Prairie City, without Budds Creek, right? Red Bud, without these tracks, there's no reason to buy a motorcycle. So if you want to go racing, we have to have tracks. Well, if the tracks are successful, well, then people are riding more. So now the dealerships sell more bikes and more parts. Now the riders, if they've got myself, we own a human performance company. Our job is to make athletes stronger, more flexible, so therefore they can ride faster for a longer period of time without getting tired. Well, of course, interwoven into all of that is, we don't want anybody to get injured. So and this sounds a little morbid, my mantra is, I want to make sure that you're strong enough and flexible enough that you bounce, but you don't break. If there isn't a Paris Raceway, there's nobody that has a need for my services. Now, you could argue somebody just wants to be strong and healthy. That's fine. But what if you're a parts company? You sell chains and sprockets, right? You're Renthal. You sell handlebar sprockets and chains. Well, if there's no track and there's no place to ride, because all the riding areas have been closed down because it's an unsafe sport. And of course, if you nose pick it across a little bump on the track, you're going to sue the track because that shouldn't have been there. There was a kicker on the jump.
Well, because everyone just wants to get rich quick, right?
Yep.
And that's the problem. And I think that we're at a precipice of changing in America, right? That this is where I'm talking about. I can't really speak on behalf of other countries because I don't fucking live there, and I only look at the financial markets if I know anything about it. So, but my point being is, like, you've got the baby boomers that are retiring now. We're left with a bunch of millennials that are taking over, and we're the ones that want to piss and moan about this shit. And social media, we see pictures of guys fucking around, like even Deegan, with, hey, look, here's my new Lambo, blah, blah, blah. So everyone wants that facade. So when they get an opportunity where they might be able to sue somebody, then it's full swing. It goes even back to, like, the argument I had with my builder coach with right before I had my second kid. with the basement being flooded. Finally, when I got a hold of him, he was like, dude, because I was going like, I am fully in my ability to sue you because of the negligence on the landscaping on my 9-month-old house here. But I don't want to do that because I'm not after trying to get a Porsche. And I know the legality involved is I'm going to be hosed because it's going to cost more to hire an attorney than it is for you to just help me fix shit. Like, let's just come to a common ground here. And that's just not how people do business anymore. So,
but here's the scary part. What's the end result? We fast forward 25 years. We have no motocross tracks. Who won? We're not selling dirt bikes. Who won? Kids are now spending more time on computers and less time outdoors. Who won? See, that's where I get so pissed off, because I'm like, blatant negligence is blatant negligence. I understand that. But for somebody to sue because your son got on a motorcycle, went over a berm and got hurt, of no negligence of the track. The track has bumps. The track has corners. The track has jumps. Nobody told your son to hit that jump in fourth gear tapped, but he did it. How in the world is that the track's fault? It's the most ridiculous thing. I'll give you an example. I'm not going to name any names. We have a client who has a facility in another country that we have one of our CRS facilities at. A group of kids showed up and they played a game. Drink a can of an energy drink. I'll say it was either Rockstar, Red Bull, Monster, or something of that sort. Throw down a can, do a lap as fast as you can, and we're going to see who can drink the most energy drinks in an hour. Kid throws his fourth one. Throws the fourth one down, goes around the first turn, dies of a heart attack on the track. The parents sued the track and win. How in the world does that happen? How does it happen? How does it even end up across a judge's docket that this is even a legitimate lawsuit? Number one, what piece of shit attorney would even try to put that on the owner of the facility? Where's the accountability with the parents that thinks this is a good idea? My son was stupid enough to drink energy drinks loaded in caffeine until he died of a heart attack.
The cans literally say no more than 2 a day or some shit. So that's probably why you couldn't go out. That's probably why they couldn't sue the energy company, because there was a blatant disclaimer.
I mean, my goodness, are you supposed to have on your clothes, do not go in the sun because it has UV rays? I mean, for Pete's sakes. Like, at what point do we get to this is beyond absurd? Like, there's got to be some level of common sense. Like if you stick your finger, it's like the hot coffee at McDonald's. Like, for Pete's sakes, dude, if it's not hot enough, you bitch it's not hot enough, and then it's hot and you pour it on your lap because you're fucking driving, brushing your teeth, and on the cell phone. Yeah, that's McDonald's fault that you spilt the coffee on your lap. Oh, it was too hot. Oh, for Pete's sakes alive.
Well,
Coach,
let me ask you,
it never ends.
Is it just, I've been saying this word too much, even when I've said that it's a dumb word when it comes to statistics, but
yeah,
the sport has gotten more popular. So therefore there's more riders. Therefore there's more dumb shit that happens, even if it's not like an obscene uptick in bad shit that happens. Let's just say it stays flat. It's like, 0.1% of every million guys, some shit like this happens, right? But we just have more, so therefore there's more opportunity for us to be aware of this kind of happening. Or do you think that there's actually like an uptick in more, I want to say, adolescent behavior, where like
I don't think it's anymore, because my first motorcycle was a 78 RM80, right? Well, if you watch the open class, you'd see a Mako 490 Spider, you'd see a KX 500, you'd see a YZ 490, you'd see a CR 480. Nobody made you go from the 250 two-stroke to a 480 or a 500 Kawasaki, right? The big thing is, the bikes are too fast. Well, for fuck's sake, if you're going to take a 79 KX 125 and compare it to a KX 500, the KX 500 is going to rip your arms off. That bike, now, if you're saying is today's 450s faster, of course they're faster. But if you're talking about the disparity or the difference between riding a 125 in 1980 to a 500 or a 490 or a 465 or
I'm just talking
480.
about, do you think there's an uptick in dumbasses that are
No,
buying
no,
motorcycles and
no. Because if anybody who's above 50 like I am, right, we all had that one Yahoo dude that just was just a crazy mother gun that would just jump anything that was in front of you. We've always had our crazy son of a bitches that are willing to do anything. The thing that I question is there's more deaths associated with soccer and football and hockey than there is in motocross, but we don't see a decline in any of those sports. That's the problem that I run into, because a parent whose son gets killed or paralyzed on a football field isn't closing down the fucking football field. But we get something, and the first thing they want to call is they want the track's head on a platter,
Okay,
and we have to shut the track down.
That's a good analogy.
That's sad.
Analogy.
And moto gets the bad thing because it's like anybody who doesn't like
what protects the local football association or the soccer field owners versus, you would think the same things that protect them could protect the track owners.
I think it's that relationship between, at the very, very top, let's just take football, NFL, and all of their leagues below. And then you look at the idea that if you look at the breadth of how many people play soccer, hockey, basketball, baseball, you're not going to shut down that machine. And this is the reason why we need the sport to grow, to get the base as big as possible, so that we realize, hey, there's just inherent risks associated with riding moto, just like it is playing football, baseball, or ice hockey. Now, some people will say we'll never get as big as ball and stick sports. Well, I understand that, but I don't think that we should not try to grow our sport. Are we ever going to be as big as a ball and stick association? Of course not. That's just not realistic. Just like any motorsports, NHRA, whatever you guys like, MotoGP, maybe if you get to Europe. But for the most part, we're not seeing our motorsports are ever going to be on par with a ball and stick sport, particularly here stateside. It just isn't going to happen. So that's where we need the sport to grow. And it goes back full circle. You need a relationship. I'm going to use the word alliance with the promoters, the tracks, and the riders. If you want to call it a riders union, if you want to call it, some people have a disdain for the AMA and don't feel like they really do what they say that they advocate that they do. I'm not here to ostracize AMA or the promoters. There has to be some way, like you said, the gray zone, where all of us have a vested interest and where it all overlaps.
So just
that's what protects the sport
with mountain bike, because there's a lot of shit going on right now with the Red Bull Rampage. Is
Sure.
this an opportunity for them to grow actually and be more of a household name and get more people involved and more safety? Or is this something that is going to hurt that sport?
No, I think Red Bull gets not full credit, but a lot of credit for bringing excitement into things that are unusual. And so there's a lot of people that have heard about mountain biking, but when they see it on TV and they see these antics that these guys do, I'm afraid of heights. So like when they start at the very beginning and they're just threading the needle on this, ledge that's 2 feet wide, that alone makes my heart skip. But the other stuff that they do, this is back to the idea that Red Bull's not making them do anything, but people are getting excited about it. Now, does that mean that everybody that watches it is going to run out and buy a downhill mountain bike and start doing backflips off of a 100-foot drop off? No.
Hell no. Hell no.
Just like as much as I'm fascinated with Formula One, I'd love to drive one of those cars. I can say that to you sitting here comfortably on a podcast. If you watch that Netflix special and you watch those guys slide down into that seat and you realize shit's about to get real, right? I mean, you see them bring them out of the garage and you hear that motor and then they hold that camera and that guy goes by at 190 miles an hour. You're like, no, thank you. I don't want to. I mean, I can tell you I would love to do it. I would be shitting myself 6 ways sideways going into a corner. As fast as those guys pivot and accelerate, I think it grows the sport. But what we have to be careful of is now all of a sudden mountain bike trails are going to go non-existent. Now these places that they do downhill snow skiing that become mountain bike parks, if we just blow up the idea that this guy did a backflip and was paralyzed. And
talking with the tracks,
yeah,
the insurance is what's killing them. They're closing
absolutely
because of the insurance cost.
And what's driving up insurance costs? Claims and frivolous claims, because somebody went over a berm and got hurt and you sued the track, and you're somebody that's in the industry that sued the track, I think you should be socially embarrassed to the point that you should really feel it hard.
But okay, kind of full circle, because I just wanted a little tidbit of that, because it is 2 wheels, you know, and guys are incredibly impressive, right? And just downhill mountain bike is badass. Back to the Deegan stuff with the 450.
Yeah.
Now that he's on the 450 squad, is he still obligated to be at the goat farm, or can he start doing shit on his own? And is he going to ride with Tomac and Cooper and Webb, or are they going to all do their different programs? Is Tomac going to let Deegan ride with him if he's racing with him? I mean, well, they're not on the same team anymore.
Are you talking about no? Stay with your thread of thought, because you bring up a good one. We know that Deegan rode with Tomac at his place. You bring up a very good point. Would they let him go ride? I still go back, and I've talked about this on the show previously. The best in our sport ever trained alone. James Stewart, Ricky Carmichael, Ricky Johnson, Jeff Ward. You know, I'm going back purposely in time, right? Ricky Carmichael, Chad Reed, James Stewart, they never trained with anybody. They would let other people come in, like Chad Reed would let Berner come in. Ricky would let Ben Townley come in and stuff like that. James let Ryan Dungey ride there for a while when Dunge was on Suzuki. There's been times where they'll let 1 or 2 people in, but this whole idea that your whole competition knows everything that's going on, if you go back, including Eli Tomac today, still rides by himself, still one of the best. You go back, as I said earlier, Jeff Ward, Ricky Johnson, the best of the best, Jeff Stanton, they rode alone, right? They had their own tracks. Stanton had his place in Michigan. He'd gotten tested in California when he had to, but he was back in Michigan. So to answer your question, the question that I would have, because we know Deegan tried to go out and do his own thing, working with Mike, or doing, not Michael Craig, help me out here, Christian Craig. Yeah. They tried doing their own thing. I had heard through the grapevine that they, being the Deegans, realized that maintaining your own track is really hard. We've heard Chad Reed talk about it. He said when he was with JGR, it was great. He showed up with a gear bag. He got dressed. His bike was prepped. The track was prepped. He got to ride. When he had his own facility, he's like, I'm running the water truck, the dozer, doing the bike maintenance. I still got to get out and ride and then still do track maintenance. I don't think Deegan wants to take all that on. So he doesn't need to leave the goat farm. Right, he's got the convenience of a prep track. He's got a mechanics area. Mechanics are there. All the R&D is there. That's why I think he'll stay in the goat farm. I did hear through the grapevine that he bought a large parcel of land about 10 miles from the goat farm. So I see him staying in that area, training at the goat farm, mainly because of the resources that are available through Star at the goat farm. That doesn't mean they don't ride other tracks. They've been spotted at a lot of different tracks around Tallahassee, Georgia area, particularly with outdoors. So
kind of the same reason as to why roundabout way Joe is not riding with the Lawrence brothers.
Well, we heard through Trey that was more of a
logistic thing, right?
Well, a lot of people don't realize this. The Lawrence brothers bought that property from Chad Reed, right? And so because there was some issues that Chad Reed had caused with the city, it's a Lake County and Sumter County in Central Florida. That's the Claremont area. So because if you look at the way a map is set up, Tim Ferry's house was very close to Chad Reed's compound. And then Chad Reed in his prime, like he paved a concrete track around his property. And then he had Travis Pastrana come down. Travis was ripping his rally car around there at 3 o'clock in the morning, pissing off everybody. Well, Chad Reed was such a big powerhouse, he didn't really care. He was untouchable until he went to sell his compound. So when you go to sell a compound and you've pissed off the whole community, they're going to put the brakes on you and say, hey, look, the only person that can buy this would be Johnny Hopper, and him and his brother can come ride. Because you own the property, you can ride. You look at, there was another facility, Tyler Rattray was out there, Alden Baker's out there. Well, what ends up happening is you and I start a facility and they give you what's called a small use permit where you're allowed up to 10 bikes. Well, if all of a sudden you have 25 or 30 bikes, that's an infraction. And then when you and I go to sell the facility, there's all these infractions. You're never going to make it a public facility.
I forget what it's called when you do that on a property where you put covenants. All of a sudden, they put some covenants on.
So then what happens is when you go to sell it, you and I can't sell it to somebody who wants to make it a public facility. So you go, Rob, how does that all tie into this conversation?
So you're saying potentially with their deal is like, it might only be, hey, only 2 guys can be out there. You can't have a third bike.
That's exactly it. So that's one of the reasons why, and I haven't spoke to Dazzy about this. I'm just putting the pieces together. When the Lawrence brothers bought Chad's place, there's a limitation of, hey, they can say on paper, that's my Uncle Eddie and my other Uncle Eddie, and there's 4 of us riding. That's my family, but you can't have 8, 10, 12 bikes. And so there's a lot of other things that have gone under, that's happened where all of the facilities that I've mentioned, they've called cops on each other, they've complained about stuff, and it's like high school politics, unfortunately, in Claremont, Florida right now.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But you bring it back full circle. I see that, we've seen that relationship with Deegan. I think Tomac respects what Deegan's done. I don't see Tomac feeling threatened, because he realizes that there's, one stepping in, one stepping out. I think it'd be cool if Eli let Hayden come and ride there. We've seen that there's been some good relationships. But I just think there's so many resources there at Star Yamaha, at the goat farm, that Deegan doesn't want. If Deegan wants to swap something or try something, it's nice to go 100 meters and you're in the shed, or you're in the mechanics area, because what they've built there is phenomenal. If you've watched those videos, when I was working with Dunge, there were just literally 2 garages in the old cabin. And you look at the videos now and where they built the machine shop and the 2-story buildings and all the admin and all, it's impressive what they've done out there. Very cool.
It's funny how the facilities are sustainable, but like the race teams are not. Like Chad had his team, Ricky Carmichael had a team.
But that's unfortunately the promoters taking the feed out from underneath the race teams. So like when Ricky Carmichael and Kerry Hart had their race team, Kenny Watson was selling their marketing. And Kenny Watson sold the Dodge company as a title sponsor when they had Roczen. Well, the promoters are like, you can't have that Dodge car here. We're a Toyota facility, or we're a Toyota event. So Kenny's like, okay. So Kenny put the race car on the lift kit on the back of the trailer, and he lifted it off the ground 3 inches. And they still said that he couldn't have his car. So Dodge pulled. Then when Ken Roczen was on the podium, the promoters told the cameraman to zoom in so you couldn't see Jimmy Johns on his jersey. So the gentleman called Kenny Watson. He's like, what the heck? Kenny just won and I'm getting no exposure. And that's because he's not a series sponsor. So the cameraman was told to zoom in, do not show Jimmy Johns. So Jimmy Johns is like, I'm out. I get no exposure because I don't support the series. I'm sponsoring a team. If Ricky Carmichael and Kerry Hart can't make a race team work in our industry, it's not an industry issue, it's a promoter issue. If you look at JGR, who can run 2 to 3 race cars, it's not somebody who doesn't know how to run a race team, it's the promoters that don't want a team to be successful. If you're not going to play the game of the promoters,
it's kind of like what happened with Geico Honda. And
100%.
Then, Chad Reed has also been pretty adamant about his medical marijuana,
CBD CBD and the camera. Both of those companies he couldn't run, so his funding for his team, he discount tires. All of these guys, because there's all these, the promoters are the ones that don't want the teams to succeed. The promoters want the teams to eat out of the hands of themselves. And where did the Makita money go? Where did the San Manuel money go? Where I just put it on my Instagram this week. One of the teams, Bud Racing, they got DeWalt tools. The yellow and black bike looked fantastic. That's the first tool sponsor we've seen since Ricky Carmichael had Makita at Suzuki. Where did Aeronautique go? If you notice, Red Bull is not sponsoring events anymore. They sponsor riders, but they don't sponsor events. So the money, like anything, like you were talking about earlier in the world of capitalism, money doesn't go away, money moves. So Makita's still spending money. Where did the money go? Why is it not back in our sport? Well, you talk to people who are starting teams, and the promoters, the manufacturers of these companies are like, the promoters make it impossible to be successful. And like you say, Think about this. Where is Geico as an insurance company in our sport right now? They're gone. So you have the promoters that poach the money from Geico. So the Geico Honda team goes away. The next year, Geico is all around the track. That lasted 1 year, and now Progressive comes in with almost $15 million. That's why they're on Roczen. This is why they're title sponsor of Outdoor Nationals. They're the title sponsor of GNCC.
Well, Coach, you know what I found out too? World Supercross has kind of been suing. Allegedly, right? Allegedly has been suing the Australian Supercross series because of like the no compete clause with their former CEO and everything. You know?
Well, it gets back down to the core of the promoters are a significant juggernaut to make the system work because they put on events. And we need tracks for people like you and I to enjoy riding, the best of the best, a place to train and maybe try to make a career at it. And then the riders themselves have to have some level of representation to protect themselves. I'm going to bring up a very controversial subject, but, you know, we see these riders that are riding concussed. And Johnny, you're a hyper-competitive athlete. You're a very good racer. You are your own worst enemy. You bang your head, right? And you need people around you like Paige that says, hey, dude, you're not getting back on the bike. And you're like, the hell I'm not. I'm getting back on the bike. Well, a rider is his own.
That's exactly what happened with my deal.
But that's what we need is we need the events. So
Cameron
the riders
McAdoo,
have some. Cameron McAdoo.
So many deals.
Bo Mayer's injury right now is a result of riding concussed. Right? There's no way, if you look at his concussion, him riding 2 weeks later was the worst decision ever. So who do you blame for allowing him to get on the bike? Right? So his manufacturer, he's paying them. They want representation. So it's not their fault if you want to get into the blame game. What about the closest people to you? Because a rider isn't going to say, oh, I'm too injured to ride. He's competitive. He wants to go race. So that's why there's got to be 3 separate entities. And where they overlap in the middle, that's where the common profit is made. And then everybody's baseline. If everybody brings a circle that represents their business, everybody's business will grow when the overlap in the middle is very, very specific. Promoters need to make money. Riders need to make money. Tracks need to make money. Manufacturers need to make money. People who produce products need to make money. And when you do, all the bubbles get bigger. Now the common line in the middle gets bigger. And this, if you want to call it profit sharing or whatever you want to call it, every other sport has done this, and it's worked miraculously. Right now, we're in college football season. And don't hold me to the exact number, especially you football fans. But whenever a college has got a TV contract, that's $1 million per weekend that goes to the school. That goes to the athletic program of that school.
Well, and there was a big thing that happened in college football not too long ago with, what was that guy, Johnny Football, where he kind of started being able to have the money not go to the colleges, not all of it at least, but some of it going to the athletes. And so he is known, and then he was in the NFL for I don't know how long. I think his season sucked. He was kind of pissing and moaning away a good opportunity, but he did well enough in college that he was able to retire and whatnot. But he transformed the sport by giving the players the ability to make some money, which in a roundabout way didn't hurt anybody.
Think about this, Johnny. You're in the corporate world. I know you run your own businesses, but you're in the corporate world. Everybody listening to this live or as a recording, when you have a profit sharing program or you've got you invest in the company and they match it dollar for dollar, most people, if they can afford it, they're like, holy cow, the employer is going to match dollar for what I put in. And let's just say it's up to $100,000 a year. Well, you put in $100,000, that $100,000 is now $200,000. Well, that's because you're a productive employee for your employer. And they're like, hey, Johnny, as a benefit, you are so highly skilled. As an incentive for us to come have you work with us, because you don't work for me, you work with us. Every dollar that you invest, we're so invested in you that we'll match it. So now it gets put in the benefits program. You've got insurance. And now profit sharing, you're like, holy shit, I put $100,000 into my 401k this year, and they put another 100 into it. That's considered a employee benefit, right? But then we don't see these guys as employees, but yet they're the ones that are the reason why we all fill up the stadiums but there is zero money going back to them other than this nominal purse.
Yeah, but then
they
put dumb
Zach,
shit into the 401ks where like you have to be with them for 10 years to be like 100% invested, or
I'm not focusing on the loopholes. What I'm saying is at least there's something there. I'm saying for the listeners, what would incentivize you to go to work for FedEx, Verizon, Amazon, whatever it must be? Okay. The idea here is you as an employee, you with incredible skill sets, you're an engineer, you're whatever you do, right? You're a plumber, you're an AC technician.
What incentivizes FedEx would be their pension that they have, which, because those things are no longer around. But I see your point, Coach.
Well, it's just what I'm thinking about. I would just like our listeners to just think about it. What incentivizes you to go to work with somebody or for somebody? It's the way that you're treated. And you wouldn't expect to go to work for a month, and then they say, we may or may not pay you. That would be considered illegal. So then when you look at now, this is what we've talked about over and over again. I'm surprised that the privateers willingly show up, knowing that they have to pay to race. They have to pay to have their partners and their mechanics and everybody else be in there. It's just the model is upside down, which when we go back to how do you grow the sport, the model has to be reconfigured.
That's kind of the whole end of this conversation is things are changing, right? And like what I told 45 minutes ago, saying that I would never try to be a privateer again, because what was fed to me was it's a production class, it's a production rule, it's competitive. What is going on in the chat right now with
and
guys
I apologize, I can't see the chat, so I apologize, guys.
I know. I put somebody in timeout because I didn't want to ban them. Anyway, it's more respectful now. But you can completely have an opinion. However, if you're starting to shit on people, that's when I cross the line. But they're all arguing about factory versus non-factory, and like what I'm saying is I would never be a privateer again, because it's a lose battle. There is no downhill. It's just complete uphill, because those motorcycles are so amazing. And then even at the MX of Nations, I won't get into the nitty gritty on stuff, but our AMA regulated motorcycles are about as good as the works MXGP FIM bikes, which we should be knowing that those bikes don't have as much rules and regulations, that they should be better motorcycles. They should be more of the works level stuff. But my point being is it's so far of unobtainium stuff that the privateer stuff it's not even worth trying to have a class. And so my full train of thought here of digressing is the privateers need to turn into the e-bike class, is what it needs to turn into. Honda's coming out with an e-bike. KTM has had multiple renditions of e-bikes. It's probably going to happen at some point. We know the technology is coming with the hydroelectric and whatnot with the Teslas and the new Toyotas and all this stuff. Like, it's just more efficient. It's the new delivery between the 2-stroke to the 4-stroke. It's just the advancements in technology. So the e-bike class needs to be the privateer class, and then we just need to have the factory class so that we can have a union, have a little bit more regulation. Everyone there is making money. You have backup teams and whatnot. We really don't need the privateers to compete with guys like Ken Roczen and whatnot, because how many times have you seen top level guys get in the way of Roczen or Jet or ruin races because they were getting lapped? Not because they're not even as talented. I mean, we could argue about that as well, but I'm saying those guys are such good riders. Really, in a 20-minute moto, nobody should really be getting lapped, right? I think it's more of an issue of the difference in motorcycles is why guys are getting lapped.
See, I'm going to politely disagree with you on this as well.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, if I go back to 86, 87, and I see David Bailey's RC 500, right? He's got the gas tank that's hand built, goes back behind the Kickstarter. We use the word unattainable all the time. I look at
The chat
I'm
is
gonna
going
show-
off on horsepower, and the factory guys, it's not about horsepower. It's about power delivery systems with
usable power.
electronics.
Yeah. Well, and this is where I was going to say, if I go back
their
to
horsepower is greater,
when,
but it's such an overuse of it's not just raw. It's not a drag strip, is what they're going off about. I'm sorry, Coach, go.
No, it's all good. I'm glad we're engaging with that community. I'm glad that they're chatting it up in there. Here's the thing that I always go back to. When I went to my first pro national in Orlando, we had the Orlando Sports Complex, and they would bring the outdoor nationals through there, right? And you look at a gate of 35, 40 guys at the time, and you had your Jeff Ward's KX, and you had Bailey's Honda, and you had Kent Howerton and Mark Barnett Suzuki's, and I can go down each color of bike. That's not what it's about. But those bikes were significantly better than anything that a privateer was riding. So if I'm looking at today, right, if you just go with me here for even numbers, we've got 5 colors of bikes and we've got 2 guys on each bike. Just go with me on numbers. So that's 10 guys. Well, if you've got a 20 or 22 person gate on a Supercross track, you're still looking at 50% of the field is factory riders, just like it was back in the 70s and 80s. And the discrepancy of the factory bikes, I'm going to show my age here. We didn't have 18 wheelers. We had box vans, right? I just interviewed Jeff Stanton for our Meet the Guest podcast, and he was talking about being at Daytona in a box van next to Bob Hanna, right? And the idea here is those bikes that were in the back of those box vans were things that you and I couldn't buy. You and I couldn't build. You and I just didn't have access to those resources, but the privateers still had to race against those unattainable bikes. There's always been that disparity in our racing. Now, am I saying that that's helping our sport grow? I 1000% agree with what you're saying. Let it be a factory race. I don't agree with the e-bikes. I'm vehemently against the e-bikes. I think it ruins the authenticity of our sport. I do understand that it's, for us to be able to maybe have backyard tracks or maybe to have a track in Central Park in New York, I think that kind of stuff is cool. But I don't want to lose the sound and the smell, because I think it goes back to, it's like going to an NFL game and they play, there's no announcer and there's no music and there's no cheerleaders, but we get to watch the football game. We would all be like, it's like people complain about going to a day Supercross. The fireworks don't look as good in the day. That's what e-bike racing is to me.
Coach, okay. Now the chat is arguing with me about that I'm saying that privateers are Eli Tomacs and Ken Roczens, and that's out of context. That's not what I was saying. I'm saying that those guys would be in the top 10. They would be in the top 5. They could be factory guys. We just don't have enough factory spots. Okay. The cream of the crop, is that the terminology saying it?
Mm-hmm.
Is going to always shine. And those guys it doesn't matter if the whole thing was stock bikes, you would still have Eli Tomac and Ken Roczen outshine guys statistically, but my point being is that the privateer bikes suck so bad compared to the factory bikes. That's just the point, right? I literally just told you guys that from my own motorcycles that I put $5,000 in. So, I'm running like a $15,000 motorcycle compared to what was unobtainium for me was like a Honda of Houston $40,000 bike was 5 seconds a lap. Right. And then
and that was the first time you rode it.
Yes.
No setup, no nothing
for me or anything.
5 seconds.
Right. And on average, I was around 9 seconds a lap slower than at every national I went to guys like Ken Roczen and everything. Mm-hmm. And, not saying that I would ever beat them, right? But I would be 2 to 3 seconds a lap slower than them with the right equipment.
I hate to bring up the Prado subject because it seems like we can't get through a podcast without bringing up Prado, but think about the idea that Prado was not able to get on pace with the other guys with all of the equipment. And I'm only keeping it relevant to what you just said. You were 5 seconds faster on a bike that you rode one time without setting up a bike. Prado had all summer to get set up.
And it was a bike that had arguably less horsepower than what my 450 had.
Yeah, I was going to say, and you're looking at a bike comparison of 250 to 450, and yet you were still quicker. It just simply summarizes everything that you're just trying to validate. You've experienced it. And then we've seen like Kevin Morantz when he got the chance to ride for Butler Brothers, He got one day at the test track, and then the next day was practice on race day. And he's like, I couldn't get the bike shaken down quickly enough. Coming back to yourself personally, on a bike that wasn't set for you, you were 5 seconds faster. On a bike that's a 250 versus a 450. If you don't use that as an example, I don't know what else you could possibly use.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very like left field example, but my point
It's very
being,
applicable.
as more deep in the sport that I get, and the more questions that I ask from people, it's just blatantly more and more obvious. Just completely, just even the tires, dude. Like the privateers cannot have. You have the MX32, but then the factory guys get different compounds. And it's like, it's a completely different tire that has an MX32 stamp on it, but it's really called a 75A and a B spec tire. Like it's completely different compounds. And how much do we know about tires make such a big difference, especially the compounds. Like right there is a 2 to 3 second advancement just in fucking rubber. Right. Then you get all more into the ECUs that are unobtainium, and then you get more into the actual motor, and it's such, I can't even put it into words, Coach, but I'm just happy that I'm not trying to chase an apple in front of me anymore that I'll never catch, that I will never fucking catch.
Well, think about what our listeners, every time you put on a fresh set of tires, how good does that feel? You know, the edges are super hard. They catch everything. Acceleration is so significantly better. And the privateers, I would say, and you tell me what number, if you agree with me or not, Johnny, I'd say 2 out of the 10 guys put on a fresh set of tires between their qualifiers and their main event. They just can't afford it.
But Coach, everyone is just all about the scoop tire right now.
Right. Yeah, that's a different story.
Tire. It's not the same scoop tire. These guys have different fucking scoop tires than what you buy, right?
Yeah, I say this in my performance camps all the time. Like when I'm trying to teach riders the importance of using the front brake to decelerate, shorten the wheelbase. And they're like, yeah, but, you know, so-and-so factory rider doesn't. And I go, if you've ever ridden a factory 4-stroke, when they go from full throttle, they chop the throttle, watch the front fork, it sits. Now, it doesn't sit as deep as if they were grabbing the front binders. They might be running a 3-speed transmission that's been tumbled and balanced. You're comparing apples to zebras. You can't look at how those guys ride a bike and go, oh, his body position's here or there. The bike is a completely different, the way it accelerates, it decelerates. You can't say that, oh, that guy doesn't drag the front brake very much, so it doesn't work. You're talking about a bike that has completely different characteristics than what you and I can buy and build, period.
And Coach, like that's where I'm saying is I don't think Jet and even Hunter would be as dominant if they didn't just have the secret sauce they have in that HRC Honda. Like what we were talking with Trey last week, what they have done with the suspension, everyone is chasing Honda now to get what they have. And again, not saying that are you going to politely disagree? You don't have to politely disagree. You could just say, no, I'm going to fucking disagree.
No, I politely disagree only from the standpoint that I think Jet and Hunter, and they've been vocal, this is not original from me. I love the fact that Jet is like, look, the bike will never be perfect. I just got to get it in a tight range. And I know it's going to be a stink bug over here. It's going to be phenomenal over here. This is the most difficult part of the track. So we're trying to get the bike comfortable where it's really rough. And then I'll just have to suck it up over there, where don't just disrespect to Sexton and all these other guys. It's like, well, the bike was really bad over there, and therefore I suck today. And I think if Deegan comes in, which I think he will, that mindset with like what Jet and Hunter do, it's like we just need to be in a ballpark and then we'll race it and we'll just let it happen. And we talked about it with Trey last week, and I'd like to revisit it. How cool is it that Honda is, you know, they were kind of the laughing stock. Ricky, nobody could get a championship since Ricky comes along.
I'm laughing at the chat.
No worries.
I'm listening to you, Coach, but it's a bummer you can't see the chat today. Is all I have to say. It's a bummer you can't. I mean, it's gone more respectful, which I'm happy about. But it's making me smile and generally laugh. That's why I need to fucking figure out how to get some of these SOBs to argue with us on the podcast, because I think it would be a hoot, right?
Yeah.
Because I do not mind, I want to say like just brake checking, block passing, your time is done. Let's move to the next. What's up?
Yeah. Well, and
it would be an interesting segment. It would be an interesting
absolutely. Well, it's so cool because Honda, everybody laughed that they spent so much money trying to hire all these riders and just couldn't get it done. And then obviously the Jet and the Hunter comes in, but it gives credit to Trey doing what he's done and everybody behind the scenes that
here.
Oh, two in the top 15.
Answer that one.
If the Honda is so superior, why are there only two in the MXGPs? MXGP is a completely different playground.
Exactly.
Completely different playground. Yeah.
Completely
Tracks are completely different. Yeah.
It's
the bikes are different.
Bike, completely different team.
And tracks. You can't compare Lommel to anything that we have. You can't compare half of those tracks to anything that we have over here. But
because Geiger is jumping ship on the Honda. He's not happy with the Honda.
Yep. And isn't it interesting how you have Jet and Hunter who love it? Now, one of the questions I had for you is if you look back at A1 last year, Hunter beat Jet. Hunter was 11th, Jet was 12th. And we know that the bike wasn't balanced and they were still trying to figure it out and everything. Isn't it interesting? You've got Geiser who did really well on it outdoors originally, and then it kind of waned a little bit. And then the fact that you've got Hurling that's leaving KTM to go ride it, it can't be that bad. It's going to be kind of the can Sexton make the bike work that Prado said was an absolute stink bug. If he does, it makes Prado look like a fool. It's going to be going on here. Do you think Jet wouldn't win Moto on an FXR Yamaha?
For hypothetically, the people that listen to this not watch the video, comment says, Johnny, hypothetically, do you think Jet wouldn't win motos on FXR Yamaha? That's the Club MX bike or the Quad Lock Honda. To me, it appears those two teams have some good equipment with multiple top 10 results.
Win the race? Absolutely not. Be competitive? Absolutely, but not win. In the road cycling world, we refer to it as marginal gains. The stuff that HRC has that the Quad Lock Honda does not have is significant at the end of the day. Now, it may not look big on paper, but if you're looking at what creates a comfort level for the rider, HRC factory Honda versus a Quad Lock Honda, it's different zip codes altogether. I mean, they'll make it look good, but they won't go and win races on it. And this is where it gets a little bit sticky. If you took every other rider and if you put Tomac, let's say he's still on Yamaha. If you put Tomac on a muck-off Yamaha and you take Jet and you put him on a Quad Lock Honda, then you take Cody Schock from FXR Club Yamaha and put him on a star bike, does that mean that now Cody Schock's going to win and Tomac's going to get 7th? No, I'm not insinuating that. That's what I'm saying. It's very, very sticky. You can't say put a rider on a privateer program and they would get better results. We're back to bike setup, comfort level. They'd still go fast. Like, no disrespect to anybody who's racing nowadays, but I'm pretty comfortable that Villopoto would still be pretty competitive today if he came out and was in shape. I'm just thinking of somebody from, not too far ago generation. It's not like he's forgotten how to go fast on a dirt bike. As you can see when you go to World Vets, it's amazing. If you haven't gone to World Vets, go watch Mike Alessi and Villopoto and Doug Dubach and those guys. They'll blow your mind. You think you're looking at an outdoor national. They're insane how fast they are. But it's cool to see. It's cool to watch.
That's why, like, under the right circumstances, you see guys excel, right? Like with some of the stuff of World Supercross and certain stuff like the OzX, where Honda doesn't really send over their factory bike there. They go over there and they use the resources available to them. Because I think at the last OzX Supercross, talking with that team, they were running fairly stock motorcycles. But again, it was more like of an exhibition race for the Lawrences rather than really the full on. They're there to sell tickets, right? So you
somebody DM'd me and they wanted to know, like, with these exhibition races, obviously Deegan's the hot topic right now. Do they get appearance money and prize purse? And for the majority of the guys, it's just they get the money. They show up, they get paid. So when
I
we
believe
talk
like
about
World
the
Supercross, the teams are making the money.
Exactly. So these exhibition type races, it really is a win-win for the rider because, like we were talking with Jeff Stanton, as I mentioned earlier, and he said all of the races that he got paid to go to Europe, and he pointed to the house behind him. It's an 8,000 square foot house. And he said, my appearances at the European races paid for that house right there. 8,000 square foot on his 4,000 acres in Michigan. And I said, it was kind of perfect timing because somebody had DM'd me after we had Trey on saying, these bonus monies, do they make? Is it like, let's say they get paid 100 grand. Do they get 50? And then the other 50 is based on the race results? No, they get offered 100 grand to show up. It's 100 grand to show up. And the money, by the way, is in the bank before they leave. It's pretty powerful, the difference in the way the promoters do it over there and the way they do it here. Now, that's not me. I'm just going off the information that people have told me. I would love to get paid $100,000 to show up and race my dirt bike. And for somebody like Deegan, who's shaking down a new platform and he has no pressure to win, lose, or draw, I mean, it's talking about a win-win, like we said earlier for Deegan. He's sitting on a lot of golden eggs right now, and he gets credit for it because he and his parents, his family as a whole, they've built the platform that it's a win-win. There's no lose for Deegan whatsoever. You'll always have the haters. Oh, he should have won. But if he goes out and he doesn't win, then people say, well, he should have won. I don't think that that's a realistic comment either. So it'll be interesting to see what the next month looks like. It's hard to imagine, Johnny. You said at the onset of the conversation, I mean, we're at the end of October. I mean, next Saturday is the 1st, or is it this weekend? Yeah, 27th is Saturday is the 1st. I mean, we'll be talking about Deegan's 2 exhibition races in A1 here in no time. I'd like to talk about 250s because the landscape of 250s are at an all-time high right now going into A1.
We're already at 2 hours, so let's talk about that.
No, it's been a good day. It's been a good day. Yeah, thank you. And hey, I know I tease about it. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. I know Johnny won't say it, but it helps the algorithm.
No, I will. Fucking hit the button. The algorithm wants you to hit the button.
Johnny has a second child. Johnny has a second child now. He's got diapers he needs to buy. But no, Johnny, I want to publicly thank you for putting these together, man. I know there's no racing going on, but you and I always have such great conversations, and I'm glad we can share it with your subscribers. I always look forward to it. I'm still a big fan of the sport, and I appreciate everybody who sends us nice comments and engage in the comments below. If you guys have questions for me, I hope you notice I do try to spend the first couple of days it goes live. I will definitely engage. If you think I'm a freaking moron, that's cool, dude. We can agree to disagree. I'm not a snowflake that gets hurt and needs a timeout.
I'm going to take this one as a compliment. Copper is a robot. Yeah, that's just because I never quit.
I say he is someone that gets shit done.
Yeah,
he gets shit done.
Yeah,
That's what I love about you. You're dependable. You're always going to put this stuff together. And this is on top of running a crypto company, 2 children, and all of the analytics videos and stuff that you guys do.
Well, Coach, wouldn't be the same.
I appreciate it, brother.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Also,
keep it respectful for the guys.
There you go.
But, yeah, I'm all about free speech, but yeah. Anyway, yes, everyone is just saying that. Coach, we'll see you next week. Again,
thank you.
My condolences, and I'm sorry for what you're doing here. And
appreciate it, brother. Man. Love you, brother. Peace.